Which one is best? So, Necrons have changed. We've had some points changes and we've had some Dataslate rule updates. So now, what are the best Necron big guns in 10th edition? Well, it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. So I recently made a video about the best Necron guns to score points. However, today we're looking at the best Necron big guns, the guns that can do the damage. Games Workshop have recently released a data slate. This updates the points and also some of the rules for our index cards. Now it's fair to say that some of our units have come down in points, which was useful. However, some of them, and understandably some of them, have gone up in points, and these are mainly on our big guns. Games Workshop, what happens to the convergence of Dominion stones? I mean, they stayed at 255 points. What? Fire alarm. 255 points, I just can't believe it. I mean, press the like button if you think they should have gone down in points. Holy smoke, I'm going to get at least 1,000 likes on this video. Now, whilst we have quite a few units that can take big guns, I'm not going to discuss all of them in this video. I'm going to narrow down the field quite a lot. I'm going to ignore the Triarch Stalker with its short-ranged heat ray. I'm going to ignore the C'tans, including the Void Dragon, which actually is an anti-vehicle type unit. I'm going to ignore the Tesseract Vault with its 24-inch antimatter meteor ability, and also the Silent King. All of these units of course have some sort of big gun and they can hurt vehicles and monsters and big stuff, but the units I really want to discuss in this video are the units which in the old days used to be called heavy support. So this means I'm also going to ignore the Doom Scythe, which has quite a nice anti-tank gun. However, as a flyer it has quite a few restrictions, not necessarily the best in 10th edition. I'm also going to ignore the Monolith. Now the Monolith has a very nice gun, but the Monolith isn't just about its big gun, it's so much more. Obviously being able to transport troops through its portal. I feel like the Monolith needs a video all by itself, so today we're going to discuss the three popular main heavy support units that we have, and that's the Doomsday Ark, the Locust Heavy Destroyers and the Doom Stalker. So which one is best? Well, let's start off talking about the Doomsday Ark, which went up quite a lot of points, from 185 points to 210 points. An increase of 25 points, but not only that, they've changed how devastating wounds work. They're no longer mortal wounds, so effectively they don't spill over, which was one of their big things. You could obviously shoot at infantry instead of tanks and spill those mortal wounds over that you score. Now they just ignore saves and invulnerable saves. Now, whilst that of course seems to make the Doomsday Ark worse, don't forget there are some units out there which have special saves against mortal wounds, and of course now they won't get them. So let's have a quick look at the stats of a Doomsday Ark. It can move reasonably well at 9 inches with a reasonable toughness 9, a 3+ save with 14 wounds, leadership 6 and a very nice OC 5. The Doomsday Cannon is a blast and heavy weapon at 72 inches. It has D6 plus 1 attacks, ballistic skill 3, a very nice strength 15, -4 AP and a fixed 4 damage. It also has a special rule that if you remain stationary, the Doomsday Cannon gains the Devastating Wounds ability. Not only that, it does have 2 Gauss Flayer arrays. Effectively, it's got 10 Gauss Flayers on the vehicle as well. Pretty nice for helping you kill infantry or just giving you that extra firepower. Not only that, on top of all of that, it has a 4+ invulnerable save. Its keywords are vehicle and fly. Now I think, to be fair, having seen all of those abilities, it's probably quite justified that this unit went up in points. Personally, I played the Doomsday Ark quite a lot. However, I have also played the other two units that we need to talk about. So, let's have a look at them. Did you know that you can support the channel from as little as 99p? I really appreciate all of the members that I've got so far. If you would like to become a member, get some extra perks from the channel, get an IDICBeer badge next to your name when you comment, then check the join button to find out more. So, the Doomstalker went up 10 points, 125 points to 135 points. Not too much, especially when you consider you can take 3 Doomstalkers for 15 points less than 2 Doomsday Arcs. Now, stats-wise, the Doomstalkers, of course, aren't quite as good as the Doomsday Arcs, but they're pretty decent. They move 7 inches with toughness 8, a 3+ save with 12 wounds. Their leadership is 8 and their OC is 4. They also have that very nice invulnerable save and of course a big gun. Their big gun is 48 inches, it is also a blast and heavy, D6 +1 attacks, ballistic skill 4, strength 14, -3 AP and a fixed 3 damage. It does have a twin Gauss Flayer, but nowhere near as good as having 10 Gauss Flayers on the Doomsday Arc. However, it does have the ability when it fires Overwatch with the stratagem to hit on 5s rather than 6s. Its keywords are also vehicle, it's also a walker and a canoptic unit. That means we can put some of our canoptic buffs onto this unit. So the Doomstalker's gun isn't quite as good as the Doomsday Arc, it's not quite as long ranged, it's not quite as powerful, it doesn't have quite the same AP, it's a fixed 3 damage as opposed to 4, and it doesn't do devastating wounds. Obviously also it hits on 4s rather than 3s. Both of the guns are heavy, so of course when you remain stationary you're going to get +1 to hit. So it's still pretty decent, and what I found with the Doomstalker, where you can obviously get more of them on the table for the points, is a couple of Doomstalkers shooting into a vehicle with a lot of wounds, they can actually do a serious amount of damage. Not only that, but they're pretty decent at taking down elite infantry units, units with 3 wounds or less. As I said, they're a lot cheaper than a Doomsday Arc, so you can get more on the table. Not only that, but as they are cheaper, they're ideal as a heavy support unit in smaller games like 1000 points, allowing you to take a few Doomstalkers and also have enough points for the other units that you want to take in your list. At the start of 10th edition, my auto includes were Doomsday Arcs at 2000 points and Doomstalkers at 1000 points. However, we have another heavy support unit to discuss, and that of course is the Locust Heavy Destroyers. So this unit's got a very expected points increase from 135 points for a unit of 3 to 150 points. Of course you can take them in units of 1, 2 and 3. Now I'll be honest with you, at the beginning of 10th edition I didn't play Heavy Destroyers, and the main reason for that I think were hang-ups from 9th edition. In 9th edition, Heavy Destroyers were our best anti-tank, even though I had some issues with them. They were very fragile. In 9th edition you hit on 3s and you could re-roll the 1s to hit. What did I always roll? 2s. However, things are different now, and having played the Locust Heavy Destroyers quite a few times in my lists, I can see what all the fuss is about. Now there are 2 gun options for the Locust Heavy Destroyers. Of course they've got that infantry killer exterminator gun, but we're not going to discuss that in this video. We're going to talk about the destructor gun only. So Locust Heavy Destroyers move 7 inches, they're toughness 6, they have a 3+ save, they have 4 wounds each, leadership 7 and OC 2. Their Gauss Destructor is a heavy weapon with lethal hits. It's 48 inches, just 1 shot, ballistic skill 3, strength 14, -4 and a flat 6 damage. A slight change to the reroll 1 in 10th edition. This time it's on the wound dice. But of course, being heavy, that means if you don't move, you're going to be hitting on 2s anyway. Now this unit's keywords are mounted and fly. Remaining stationary, hitting on 2s, lethal hits, re-rolling the 1s to wound with a flat 6 damage is pretty sweet. Now whilst this unit is still fragile, it's certainly more fragile than the other 2 units we've talked about, which both have a 4+ invulnerable save. This unit isn't as fragile as it was in 9th edition. Reanimation protocols are a lot better than they were. Of course, we can lose one and then get it back up straight away before another unit shoots in and kills the whole unit, which of course is how you ignore reanimation protocol. Not only that, but on the whole, it is harder to shoot in 10th edition with the way terrain works, the line of sight, and of course in range rules. So generally I've found my Locust Heavy Destroyers have survived a lot more than they did in 9th edition. Now obviously all 3 of these units will benefit from being led by a character with the Sovereign Coronal Aura ability, +1 to hit, so you can then move and still shoot on 2s. Now obviously if you stand still it doesn't benefit you unless you're up against something which is -1 to hit, so then it negates that. So generally it's a very good tactic. Now personally I use the Hexmark Destroyer for this job, but I'd love to know what character you use to do this job. Let me know in the comments box below. So, which one of these 3 units is the best? Well, clearly they're all still very usable, even with the points increase. However, for me, the Doomsday Arc has moved into the realm where I have to seriously consider whether I want to invest those points in that unit. I'm not saying it's a bad choice, I'm just saying you have to be committed to the Doomsday Arc. Now of course, when you take a Doomsday Arc in your army, maybe you've got say 2 Doomsday Arcs, you are slightly vulnerable to bring it down. So when your opponent gets the bring it down tactical objective card, then the chances are they're going to start shooting at your Doomsday Arcs, which, to be fair, if they didn't have that card, they probably wouldn't do that. So it's worth being mindful that when you take just 1 or 2 vehicles, they will be targeted once your opponent gets that card. Of course, the Doomstalker suffers from the same thing. However, where they're a lot cheaper, you can have 3 of them compared to 2 Doomsday Arcs. That means you've got more unit redundancy. So if your opponent does manage to kill one of them, at least you've got 2 big guns left. Whereas if a Doomsday Arc goes down, you're down to your last big gun. Doomstalkers are a great cheap option if you just need to free up points in a big list, or if you're taking smaller lists to add in some heavy support. However, for me, the Locust Heavy Destroyers with their very nice flat 6 damage is the gun of choice. The gun is very reliable, especially if you're being led by a character. Of course, you can remain stationary and shoot on 2s, but also you can move about the board with a character there. Now, for me personally, I tend to put these on my backfield objective, just popping away at as many vehicles and monsters as I can. However, as they're not vehicles, it also means that I can build a list with no vehicle units in it if I want to. I know the Reanimator and Warriors and all the rest of it is popular at the moment. Personally, I'm not going down that route with my list. So a list with no vehicles in, no monsters in, means that my opponent can't get Bring It Down. Now, whilst that's just maybe a few points, it's still some points they can't get. It's still a card which they may have to either swap for a CP or dispose of at the end of the turn. And of course that means 1 card less to score points. Now of course I don't use this tactic in all of my lists, but I do in some of them. Now if you want to see my video about the best Necron gun to score points, then here it is for you to watch next. And here's some battle reports that you may enjoy watching where I use some of these tactics in action.